Hello again. My name's Charles R. Sabo. I'm doing another teaching video today. We're going still remaining in the book that I wrote 8 years ago, the Prophecies of Daniel. Um, I have revised it, the third edition, within the last, I'm going to say 10 to 14 days. And so it's got basically I agreed with everything I wrote 8 years ago. Is just that I had to make a few changes and updates because I have learned a lot more in the last 8 years. I went to seminary and what have you. So obviously, the Lord has revealed to me many things from the other books that I had researched. And so this gives you a more rounded version of Daniel that I wrote 8 years ago. And so I'm going to scroll down. I already released chapter 7. I think that was yesterday. And so now I've got Daniel chapter 8. So I'm taking it from the PDF of the book and I'm going down, 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 looking for chapter 8. If I can find it. Where am I at here? It's a 70 weeks. So it's the one right before this. Uh, Little horn. Give me a moment. I'm pretty sure this is the chapter. And here it is. Now, this is actually Daniel chapter 8. This is chapter 5 in my book, Prophecies of Daniel. It's concerning the ram and the he-goat, right? So chapter 8 of Daniel, it gives a little bit more detail of what you already learned from the dream and visions from Daniel chapter 7 and also Daniel, the chapter 2 of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So this is I'm going to say an elaboration of more details given to Daniel um, about the ram and the he goat and how it manifests. Now, this gives us some truth to think about, to contemplate, because the Roman Empire never fell. And so, this ram and he goat version of the prophecy from Daniel 7 concerning the four beasts elaborates a little bit more detail on what is supposed to occur. Remember, Daniel wrote this in the 5th century BC. And so these things that have come about all the way up to the current day have been manifesting. So I'm going to start just by go ahead and reading what Daniel chapter 8 verses 1 and 2 right to you. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was in Shushan, in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Okay, so a little bit to break down here, isn't it? So let's see what we got. Now, Daniel chapter 8 is a prophecy which was brought to Daniel in the third year of King Belshazzar's reign over Babylon, which would put the year about 554 BC. Now, Daniel chapter 7, the dream was in the first year of Belshazzar. So this is 2 years later. He experienced again a vision rather than a dream of this prophecy. Daniel gives his specific location as if it is important. And so one should try to understand where this was. Ulai, or the Ulas of the Greeks, is a river of Susiani. It was probably the eastern branch of the Chosper or Kirkon, which which divided into two branches some 20 miles above the city of Susa. Now, hence Daniel speaks of standing between the banks of Ulai, and verse 16 of this chapter, or between the two streams of the divided river. Now, I got a little map here to give you a little perspective. Here's Ulai. So he's in this region right here, is what you can determine. Here's Babylon over here. Remember, this is when uh, he, I want to say, the third year of Nebuchadnezzar's descendant. And so Nebuchadnezzar's dead. And so obviously Daniel being of power, lifted up by Nebuchadnezzar, was able to roam around a little bit. In this case, he had the freedom to roam, and so he was over in this vicinity right here when he saw this vision. Okay, so just get it into a little bit of a perspective here. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before a river a ram which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Now, and at verse 4, and I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. All right. So let's break that down. The resemblance of this ram in verse 8:3 to Daniel's second beast of Daniel 7 can be seen here. Notice that the two horns, right? That has two horns, this ram. As we know from previous chapters, a horn is allegorically interpreted as a king. There was to be two kings. The bear, as the second beast of Daniel 7:5, did not provide a clear indication that there was going to be an alliance between two kings. So this is giving Daniel and us, the readers, a little bit more clear interpretation of why the bear was lifted up on one side, right? Let's see. 2 years later, God disclosed to Daniel that this would be the case. Later, the bear of Daniel 7:5, with one side raised higher, the one horn of the ram is higher than the other horn in 8:3. See how they're related. From what I covered discussing the bear in Daniel 7:5, King Cyrus of Persia rebelled, against his suzerain, the Median king Extages, son of Caesarius. And an alliance formed after Cyrus won over the Medes, which means his kingdom came second after the Medes. The higher came up last. See how that fulfilled? That was fulfilled after Daniel obviously prophesied it before this happened. So God gave him insight of what was coming. He then became the dominant greater king than the alliance within that alliance. Therefore, the one horn king became higher than the other. Cyrus was higher than the Median king. Notice that the vision came to Daniel just 1 year before King Cyrus rebelled against the Median suzerain. So I says 1 year Median suzerain 554 BC. And what did we say? Maybe I need to fix that. 554 BC, put the year around 554 BC. So here it shows about the same year, but um, pretty close, right? He was given this vision. So King Cyrus was in the works of fulfilling this. Oh, gee, Daniel didn't write this until he saw that it was fulfilled. You could say that, but I don't believe it after I've seen everything that Daniel was given. This vision was given to him, and then he wrote what he saw. Verse 8:4 reveals how dominant the Medo-Persian Empire was to be after King Cyrus defeated Babylon, right? So let's look at Daniel 8:5-7. As I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Right? So this is the he-goat. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So this he goat is attacking the ram, right? So, and I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and broke his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Isn't that interesting? His hand. So obviously a goat doesn't have a hand, so it's being humanized here, but not to be concerned. understanding that the Medo-Persian Empire was to be destroyed by the conquests of Alexander the Great, discussed while covering the second and third beasts of Daniel 7. If you want to go back to my videos on Daniel 7, you'll see we discussed that briefly. We can then look at Daniel 8:5 and be confident that this he-goat represents the Macedonian Greek Empire of Alexander the Great. The third beast of Daniel 7:6 had four wings of a fowl, which meant it had, I think I need to fix that fall. I've spelt it wrong, which meant it attacked with incredible swiftness. Notice that the he-goat is being described as if it is flying, as if his feet never touch the ground, okay, which also reflects the swift movement of the military. And I want to show you that, maybe I did go over it. Let's see. You remember the beast of Daniel 7 had four wings, which said that it moved with even swifter, with more swiftness than Babylon with two wings. So it was a very swift, the leopard with the four wings and four heads. That's the Macedonian Greek Empire of Daniel 7, Daniel 7, 5, and 6. So let's read this. Sorry. Coming from the west, which is Greece, Alexander had been conquering the whole civilized world. Obviously, the one notable horn or king is Alexander the Great. Then verse 8:6 declares that the he-goat charged at the ram with great fury. Now, the ram being the Medo-Persian ram, so the Macedonian Greek he-goat rushes at the Medo-Persian ram. Okay? The he-goat of the Greeks, Macedonian Greeks. Alexander the Great was one of the greatest military leaders of all time. The Medes and the Persians were no match for him. Verse 8:7 indicates that Alexander was moved with great choler against the Medes. I'm finding typos here. I got two typos within 2 minutes. I need to fix that. I need an E in there. Medes and Persians. Okay, was moved with great choler is translated from the Hebrew verb marar, which is defined as to show bitterness. Okay, so now I'm going to explain the bitterness. In the year 333 BC, Alexander the Great and King Darius III crossed swords for the first time at the battlefield on the plains of Isis. Now, Darius III was the Persian king. Now, the official war objective of Macedonia was revenge. Greece wanted a revenge against wanted revenge against the Persians for the destructive campaign against Greece, which had taken place 150 years previously. Alexander's military genius surrounded the Persian army, causing Darius III to flee. Discouraged by the flight of the king, the Persian army retreated with all of its soldiers. The number of dead on the side of Alexander the Great is put at about 450 men, with the approximately 10 times that number wounded. Now, there were thousands of times more dead and injured on the side of the Persian army. One can see that the prophecy of Daniel 8:5 through 7 couldn't have been more precise. So, moving with choler, they were bitter over that defeat that they suffered to the cruel Persians 150 years previously. So they were bitter from that. So if you add 150 years, it's around 483 BC was when that encounter happened where they were defeated. Now, 150 years later, 333 BC, Alexander the Great then gets revenge for the Greeks. All right, so it was a bittersweet win for Alexander the Great over the Persians and the Medes. Okay, so now we'll go over Daniel 8:8. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great when he was strong. The great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven. Now, Um, verse 8:8 presents Daniel with more information that was earlier in the dream that he had been given concerning the third beast, which was the four-headed leopard with the four eagle's wings, right? So we didn't know what the four heads meant. All we knew that four heads was probably four kings. That's all we knew about this leopard. Well, why? Well, this gives us more information. The the he goat's notable horn was broken. Alexander the Great was the notable horn. The reason for the four heads on the leopard as the third beast of Daniel 7:6 was to be the death of the notable horn. The king, Alexander, died. He died very early. He was very young. Upon the death of Alexander the Great, the kingdom was divided between his four generals, or notable ones, as seen in verse 8:8. Okay, thus the four heads of the leopard, right? From Daniel 7. Syria, Syria and the east were under the head of General Seleucus. Bithynia and Thrace was under General Lysimachus. Egypt was under General Ptolemy Soter, while Macedonia was under General Cassander. Okay, those were the four kings or heads of the leopard that came as a result of the notable one, the horn of the he goat, having been broken. He died. Alexander the Great died. So, more information. Daniel was given more information, wasn't he? Or we were. Obviously, we're reading. This is all history now, which is amazing. Very accurate, uh, given to Daniel a century and a half, or yeah, so a century and a half before it happened. The four winds of heaven has to be seen here allegorically as heaven, but the important word here is towards. Now, the four winds of heaven is actually the four winds of the weather, right? The first heaven, the four winds of the first heaven. So it's the entire weather system. So it's the entire earth, right? So interpreting the allegory, we should understand that these four generals would rule as kings over the entire civilized world between them, the four winds of heaven. Um, I did a Bible commentary a year ago, actually, a little over a year ago, on Genesis 1 through 11, and I've determined that there's three heavens. Obviously, I knew that, but in Genesis chapter 1, the first heaven was created on day 2. And that was the firmament called heaven, right? That was the Earth's atmosphere. Well, the Earth's atmosphere has the wind. So the four winds of the first atmosphere is all the winds of the entire Earth. All right. If you want an understanding on that. So anyway, we'll come back to that uh, another time. I cover it pretty thoroughly in Revelation, my commentary on Revelation, on chapter, I believe it's 7, I think. Anyway, let's go to verse 9, Daniel 8. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great towards the south and towards the east and towards the pleasant land. Now, out of one of them, right? Who's them? Well, the notable ones, there were four notable ones, four generals, right? So out of those four generals or four kingdoms came a little horn. So if you remember back in Daniel 7 talked about a little horn coming out of the fourth beast, 10 horns, and a little horn came out of those 10 horns, right? So now we're back here hearing once again that this little horn came actually out of the Greek Macedonian four empires. So see how that conflicts with the Roman Empire theory? So to say that Rome had been destroyed or ceased from being a nation or a kingdom, and then will come back in the last days for those 10 horns is heresy. And to say that uh, that this gives you elaboration that the Greek Empire actually manifested itself into that fourth beast of Daniel 7. And that's what it's saying here. This verse is key. It says that that little horn that comes out of the fourth beast of Daniel 7 is the same little horn that comes out of the four notable ones of Daniel 8. That is the important verse here to determine that it comes out of one of these four kingdoms, right? So that means that the Roman Empire came out of one of these four kingdoms. Does that make sense? I get frustrated with the ridiculous interpretations of verse 8, 9. It seems very few want to read further down in chapter 8 in order to understand that verse 8, 9 was explained to Daniel. Pastors and theologians fall declaring heresies because they're not able to explain why the little horn was to come out of the four notable ones kingdoms. A majority of these pastors and theologians desire to declare the little horn to be Antiochus the fourth, Epiphanes the fourth. Daniel 11 prophecies about Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, Daniel 11, 21 through 34. And many want to link verse 9 of chapter 8 here with that. It is absolutely ridiculous to even consider that. I will explain here as I go. As this unfolds, it should make sense that this little horn is not Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, but is Antichrist himself. Please keep in mind the Lord had already disclosed within Daniel 7, 8 that this little horn is the Antichrist. So you see how Daniel 8 links the little horn to Daniel 7. I'm going to explain a for sure way to look at this. All right, so here's a map of the Seleucid Empire. Remember, Seleucus was one of the four kings, one of the four notable ones that come out of the Greek Empire. So here's the Seleucus Empire. That he became the greatest of the four, the Seleucus Empire. Now, first of all, verse 8, 9 states that the little horned king goes towards the south and also the east. So we look at the map. Here's the Seleucid Empire. Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes was a Seleucid king. Now, let's just say we're going to say that if Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes comes from the Seleucid dynasty and goes south and east, here's south and east, he's going over here. He's going over here. Can we understand that? All right. While going through the pleasant land, being the holy land of Israel. Now, going south and east, he's not going. The Holy Land's over here. This would have to say that he was going south and west into the Holy Land, but it doesn't. It says he goes south and east, right? So this cannot be a Seleucid king. It cannot. It cannot. The Seleucid Empire is right here, going south and east. You're going into Arabia, to Saudi Arabia. Okay, I hope I've made that clear. Coming towards the east would mean that he is from the west. He is he is from the north. Now we're talking about from Jerusalem, from the east, we're looking at the focal point being Jerusalem, the Holy Land, the pleasant land. Okay, in the prophecy. So coming towards the east would mean that he's from the west. He um, he is from the north if he is moving towards the south, right? So Antiochus Epiphanes was the king of Syria moving towards the south and east of Syria. He would not be moving towards the pleasant land. I just said that, didn't I? Instead, he would move into Saudi Arabia, then into the land of India, which history does not support. Antiochus III, Antiochus the Great, Antiochus the Third, Antiochus the Great Magnus, had already conquered the land of Syria, east of Syria to the western Indian border. He had already done it. That was Antiochus IV Epiphanes' father. If someone were to study the conquest of Antiochus IV Epiphanes, they would see that his conquests were against Egypt and the Ptolemaic Empire. This would have him coming from the north and east while moving towards the west and south, which totally contradicts the prophecy of Daniel 8:9. You see what I'm saying? So this prophecy is not Daniel, is not Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth. Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes. It is not him. Just this verse alone says it's not. People twist this. The preterists, the amillennialists, the I'm trying to think of all of them. The post-millennialists. They just don't believe that the Antichrist is this little horn. They don't want to because it just, oh, how does this happen? That he comes out of both the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire. Oh, no. Well, I can explain it. So hang on here. All right. So if someone were to study the conquest, I already read that. I'm sorry. Da, 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 da. The only truth of this prophecy that he does not contradict was that he did conquest through Jerusalem. Yes, he did. Right? We know that Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes did conquest through Jerusalem, but that's going southwest, not southeast. The little horn is from the northwest of this region or collection of empires. That would put him from Europe. Okay, we look back at the map. He's over here from the northwest, coming southeast. He comes southeast, then goes through the Holy Land. Right? So, somebody over here. I already know that the Antichrist is from Rome, right? So, because of Daniel 9:26 and 27, we know that the people that destroyed the city and the sanctuary in 70 AD were Romans. And so the prince of the people that destroyed the city and the sanctuary that is to come will administrate a covenant for 1 week. That's Daniel 9:27. So this person is coming this direction, right here. Okay, it's going southwest. Okay, so you see how this works so far. All right. Da, 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 da. If one wants to twist the scripture to fit an agenda or doctrine, then they are saying that God is wrong and that the prophecy is not right. Preterists, amillennialists, postmillennialists choose to twist the verse into being Antiochus fourth Epiphanes so that their agenda can be explained. This verse cannot be rightfully interpreted as being a king from the north headed southeast while having the outcome that Antiochus IV had fulfilled. Doesn't make sense, does it? If one researches history, see Prophecies of Daniel 11, which is later on here in this book, Daniel very thorough in his prophecy there in Daniel 11. One will find that Antiochus IV Epiphanes only traveled southwest from Syria through Jerusalem, then on to Egypt during his conquests. Right? So, there's your history lesson for the day and geography lesson for the history of Antiochus. It isn't Antiochus. There's no stinking way. And so we're going to go on Daniel 8:10 through 12. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Verse 11, yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down, and a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Now, they like to plant this since they already are determining that it was Antiochus' fourth Epiphanes. They want to plant all this on him. And it just doesn't make sense to me because this is a supernatural person that is accomplishing this. And Antiochus' fourth Epiphanes had no supernatural abilities. So let's go over this little horn again. And you might want to go back to my video. There's a two-part video that I did yesterday on Daniel chapter 7, the four beasts of Daniel 7, that talks about the little horn coming out of the great beast, the fourth beast, which everybody wants to say is the Roman Empire. I'll agree. Rome has never fallen. It's still alive today. I explained that in the previous prophecy. I think I go over that a little bit here. The little horn king becomes very great. He is to be so great that he has encounters with the host of heaven, angels. His encounters are with the angels of heaven and fallen angels of Satan. So he has encounters with good angels and bad. Heavenly hosts refers specifically to the angelic beings, just as in Luke 2:13's heavenly hosts praising God at Christ's birth. It does not generally refer to celestial bodies or to cosmos in general. It does not. In the Bible, we are told not to worship the heavenly host, while God is declared the Lord of hosts over 200 times. Modern theology almost always interprets heavenly host or host of heaven as the stars and planets, unless the context makes it absolutely unavoidable to do so. They just, oh, these are stars, when it's actually meant to be the angelic realm. In Genesis 1:15 through 17, there is a completely different Hebrew noun, kaukab, which is used to refer to the literal stars, right? Okay, so it's an issue. People don't like to say that the host of heaven are the angels. God is, well, God is the Lord of hosts. If he's Lord of the angels, sure. I mean, the Lord over the stars, well, he's the Lord over everything. But specifically, he's the Lord over his angels, the heavenly host. According to history, Antiochus Epiphanes IV had no encounters with angels and was not capable of casting even one angel to the ground, let alone some of the host of the stars. Verse 8:11 indicates that this little horn magnified himself as the prince of the host. Okay. Since Antiochus, I should say Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, because he was the fourth Antiochus, but he was the only Epiphanes, is actually maybe not. I could be wrong there. In Daniel 11, I explain all the Antiochuses and all that. Is not He's not the little horn mentioned here, right? One should reference the future daily sacrifice being a takeaway, as indicated in Daniel 9:27. The Antichrist takes away the daily sacrifice at the midst of the week, the 7 years. This will be right after the prince who is to come commits the abomination of desolation. All right. So we'll go over Daniel 9:27 right here because a lot of people like to twist this to support that preterist, amillennialist, post-millennialist heresy. That like to say this is a Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes. Okay, so and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, the 7 years. And in the midst of that 7 years, 1 week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. The abomination of desolation at the midst of the week. All right. He shall make it desolate, even until the consummation that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. All right. So a lot of people don't interpret that correctly. And so that's where all your heresies spin off of. Daniel 8, verses 8 and 9, and Daniel 9, 26, 27, heresies spin off of these because they're not properly interpreted. That's what I'm here for, to straighten you out. As this chapter continues to unfold, it really amazingly confirms other prophecies from other prophets. Verse 8:12 determines that the little horn will be given a host. which was translated from the Hebrew noun Saba or Sabe. This is not a host of angels, but a military host to overcome Israel and continuing their daily sacrifice on day 1261 on the 2520 days. So he's not given a heavenly host. He's given a host. A host is a military. So he's given a military. I already said that. Let's see. All right. Verse 8:12 continues with the little horn, Antichrist, stopping the daily sacrifice while he casts the truth to the ground. What is the truth? Who is the truth? Jesus Christ said that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by him. That's what this is talking about. The truth of the gospel, the truth given to you by God. This little horn is the Antichrist, and he's going to cast the truth to the ground and stomp on it. When the abomination of desolation is committed, the Antichrist will declare himself to be God as at the holy temple in Jerusalem. Then the people of the world will believe him. This becomes the biggest casting of the truth committed by him. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth, and it will be cast to the ground. And I'll read one more time. And it cast down the truth. Remember, it says it because it's talking about that little horn. The little horn, cast down the truth to the ground and practiced and prospered. This is the little horn of Daniel's 7, the fourth beast. It's the same little horn. Many will gladly take his mark of the beast and follow him, as his abomination is practiced and prospers. The mark of the beast of Revelation 13:16 through 18 will be that deceptive requirement that will divide the righteous from the unrighteous, and it will prosper. Notice how it's specific and is confirmed elsewhere. So don't create anything out of this to satisfy your deceptions or your agendas. This is supported by other places in the Bible. All right. So hopefully you understand that Daniel 8 actually confirms Daniel 9, doesn't it? And I'm going to go over Daniel 9 next after this video comes out. So we're moving on. We're going to keep going because I've given you the interpretation of the verse. Then it gets confirmed more here. 8, 13, and 14. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto the other that certain saints which spoke, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, I notice I have a capital H. Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. He is the pre-incarnate Christ speaking to Daniel in this prophecy. Daniel was there with uh, the angel that came um, to him from there's an angel that comes and speaks to him. Well, in this case, this is he being God giving him this recitation, and I'll go over that a little bit here. I can't trying to think where I covered that, but don't worry, please. Let's mute right now until we confirm. Verse 13 entices people, pastors and theologians, to allegorize when the verse is clearly of a literal context. This speaks literally of the abomination of desolation, Daniel 9:27, the abomination of desolation in the midst of the week. Daniel 11:36, if you go there, Daniel 11:36 is the abomination of desolation. Revelation 13:5 is the abomination of desolation. So there's different places in the Bible that has the abomination of desolation shown. This speaks, okay, and asks how long the daily sacrifice will be stopped. Now, this person, then I heard one saint speak, right? This saint to another saint that a certain spoke. Okay, so this isn't the Lord speaking either one of these places, but the Lord hears them. Now, I could be in error. Another saint, I could be in error. Maybe it's not a capital H, and I'm not afraid to retract because I do know the Lord says something similar in Daniel 12. Um, so we'll right now just move past that. I'll go into that. Let's see. We stopped and trodden underfoot. Trodden underfoot refers to the temple at the midst of the 7 years at the abomination desolation event. Zechariah 14:1. The Gentiles will be intruders within the holy temple. Therefore, it is referred to being trodden underfoot. They aren't allowed in the Holy of Holies, the holy place. They aren't allowed in there, yet they're going to go in there. They're going to trample it. They're going to be in there an abomination. So that's what this is pertaining to, is once the abomination and desolation occurs, then the Jews will flee. For 3.5 years, they will flee and be given a hiding place by God. And the Gentiles will have possession of the temple for the last 3.5 years. That's what this is pertaining to. Now, verse 8:14 then brings a prophetic answer from the Lord. Many will allegorize this to being a prophetic day equaling 1 year. God never uses the word day in prophecy to mean years, but uses the word time as a as I have noted from a prophecy in Daniel 7:25, right? That consisted of a time times and a half a time, 3.5 years. When God uses multiplicity of years, he uses weeks of years description. Daniel 9:25-27. He used weeks of years, right? Date setters love to twist this from being the Antichrist into being Antiochus Fourth Epiphanes when he committed the first abomination in 167 BC. Yes, he did, but that's not what this is talking about. They then calculate 2,300 years from that date to be the day that the temple will be cleansed. They don't know theology very well if they think that. Nice try, nice twist. Boy, they twisted it hard. But as one can see, it is not Antiochus, as I had already shown you. The Antichrist, little horn, will commit the abomination of desolation on day 1261 of the 2520 days of the 7 years. The and it is okay. Count down from the. I already said that. Okay, how long? I'm going to recite this again. How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation? Right, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. The countdown provided was presented by the Lord God, which counts down days to a specific event. Not years, but days. I have to drill this home. It's days. So you count out from day 1261, the second half of the 2520 days, it adds up to 1260 more days of the second half, but it's giving us count out 1300 days from this point. So it's going to be an extra 40 days. Well, that's what I feel. People like to say it's an extra 1,040 days, which is like 3+ years to cleanse the temple, which is absurd. See, theologians like me, I'm not going to let you get away with this. You have to follow what is being said. I found myself very troubled with the Old Testament manuscripts that have imputed the plural aleph for 1,000 in Daniel 8:14. I believe that in order for the prophecy of Daniel 12:11-12 to be true, the aleph, 1,000, in Daniel 8:14 has to be a singular thousand, a singular aleph. Researching, I could find no other Hebrew manuscripts dating before 1000 AD. for Daniel chapter 8? Nowhere. Then we have, oh, what about the Dead Sea Scrolls? Well, even the Dead Sea Scrolls do not consist of Daniel 8:14. I looked, I got the fragment on my computer, I looked, and Daniel 8:14 is missing. Daniel 8:14 is not there. So I can't confirm from the Dead Sea Scrolls Daniel 8:14 being a single Aleph. There's no proof of the single Aleph, but there's no I can find several places where scribes have miscopied something. It's obvious. This is one of those where I believe it's obvious, but theologians don't want to challenge it because they don't understand the timing of this. And I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to educate you on theology and the timing of why this passage is here. All right, let's let's go. Here's this. Here's what Daniel 8:14 says, and because 8:13 gives you the timing of it, right? 8:14 tells you, and he said unto me, this is God, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Okay. Can the sanctuary be cleansed anytime between the time that it was destroyed in 70 AD and now? No. So you can't count out years from the Antiochus Epiphanes. You can't. It's ridiculous. But if we're counting down from the abomination of desolation committed during the 7 years, then you count out 2,300 days. Well, let's look at this. I'll convince you here with some math. I believe that the Aleph, 1,000 in Daniel 8:14, was not a plural Aleph within the original manuscript written by Daniel. Somehow, through the scribes who recopied manuscripts through the centuries, this was mistakenly changed to a dual Aleph. The purpose of the counting of days is the cleansing of the temple after it will be desecrated by Antichrist. From the first day of the second half of the 7 years, day 1261 to the day 2520, the last day, is 1260 days total. This countdown must begin, right, at that 1261st day, which 1260 days is the last day, which is the second coming of Christ. It doesn't take 1,040 days to cleanse the temple. This is what the verse, if you do two alephs, says. You take away the days from the abomination to the second coming, it's 1,260 days till the second coming of Christ. That leaves us with almost 3.5 years, or if you go 360-day years, 3 years, would that be 1,020? No, 360, 1,080. So almost 3 years, biblical years, to cleanse the temple. Does that make sense? It should only take the 40 days. 1,300 minus the 1,260, 40 days. And it doesn't even take 40, it takes 8 or 9 days. And I'll explain that. Daniel 8:14 is clearly a time counted starting with the day of the abomination and desolation and counting out 1,300 days from that point. With Christ arriving on day 12, on the 1,260th day, after the abomination of desolation, 40 days later, the temple will be cleansed. Why? Why do we need to cleanse the temple? Well, it was desecrated by Antichrist. If it's desecrated, it needs to be recleansed. That's in the laws of Moses. If one looks at Daniel 12:11 through 12 prophecies, 75 days after Christ returns, the temple will be rededicated on Kislev 25. This day is known as the first day of Feast of Dedication. They cannot rededicate the temple before the cleansing. So you're going to dedicate the temple 75 days after Christ arrives when it's going to be cleansed for 3 years. It logically doesn't make sense. That's why I'm saying that Aleph is a mistake. It has to be first cleansed, just as they did during the Maccabean cleansing and rededication of the first feast of dedication that came after the first desecration by Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes. The, the Hanukkah, the first day of Hanukkah, it's an 8-day feast of dedication. They rededicated the temple after cleansing it, and that day is the Feast of Dedication. And they have celebrated this every year since that day. It is significant. The Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, was not to be a feast of the Lord to be celebrated annually according to the laws of Moses. But because the Apostle John had acknowledged the Feast of Dedication within his gospel, John 10:22, it must be assumed to be significant. The 8-day festival beginning on the 25th of Kislev, which is in November, December, changes yearly because of this is the 360-day calendar, commemorates the rededication of the Holy Temple in 164 BC by Judas Maccabeus. The Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, does have prophetic significance. Now, I'll read you Daniel 12:12, why I say this. Blessed is he, this is spoken by God, Jesus, the pre-incarnate Christ, in Daniel 12. When I get there, I'll confirm this with you. Blessed is he that comes to the 1,335 days, 1,335 days. Okay. And people are just scratching their head and twisting it and making this years to make sense of it. It's days. The Feast of Atonement will be the start of the 70th week of Daniel, as well as the day of Jesus Christ's return, 2,520 days later. 360 times 7 is 2,520 days. This will be 1,260 days after the abomination of desolation. And I've already confirmed you can go to Daniel 9:27 and Matthew 24:15 and 16. They're the same. They're where you get the abomination of desolation. Jesus confirms it. It's after through because Jesus talked about the abomination of desolation here. You can't say that it's the future. Oh, that it was it's already been fulfilled through Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes because it did happen. Oh, so Daniel 9:27 was fulfilled? No, because Jesus, the Son of God, says that it's going to be fulfilled again in the future. Here. So the Feast of Atonement is celebrated every year on Tishri 10. The Feast of Tabernacles is 5 days later between Tishri 15 and 22, which is a 8-day feast actually. Exactly 75 days after the Feast of Atonement is the first day of Hanukkah, Feast of Dedication, which is Kislev 25. Now, 1,260 days plus 75 more days is 1,335 days in the Daniel 12:12 prophecy. Feast of Dedication is exactly 75 days from the Feast of Atonement, the day of the second coming. It will be that the official rededication of the Millennial Kingdom's temple is going to be on Kislev 25. You follow me here? Knowing that the rededication of the temple is 75 days after Christ's return, one should realize that the temple must be cleansed first. The cleansing of the temple, Numbers 19, 1 through 10, Ezekiel 43, 18 through 24, will be finished, 1,300 days after the halfway point midst of the 7 years, as was confirmed in Daniel 8:13. If you remember, we're going over that. Jesus Christ will return 1,260 days after the abomination of desolation and will set up his millennial kingdom. 1,300 days minus 1,260 days equals 40 days after Christ arrives. The temple will be repaired and cleansed. 35 days later, the temple will be rededicated, which is 1,335 days after the abomination of desolation by Antichrist. See the math. It confirms exactly what prophecy says. And it is follows the laws of Moses. The rededication of the temple has to be cleansed first. They can't. So obviously, back here, remember I said that the Feast of Tabernacles is 5 days after the Feast of Atonement? They actually cannot celebrate, Jesus cannot celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, which is 5 days after he returns, because the temple has been desecrated. He knows, but he works on this. And so the year later, the next year on the Feast of Tabernacles, it will be ready to be celebrated and for 1,000 years be used for an annual feast day celebrated by the Lord as he sits on his throne in Jerusalem. So it's an important feast day, but they can't do it on the first one, which is 5 days after he returns, because the temple has been desecrated. Now, seeing that, now that I've pointed this out to you, it has to be cleansed. And they're not going to wait 3 years to cleanse it. That would be absurd that the Lord just, oh, we got to wait 3 years to cleanse the temple. But Lord, it only takes 8 days. Yeah, I know, but a scribe accidentally wrote 2,300 days instead of 1,300. So we have to do it because it was there. No, no, no. A scribe cannot change what the Lord's intentions are. The Lord's intentions are that it's 1,300 days, not 2,300. And it came to pass, we're going to go over, what is this? Daniel 8:15 through 18 now. And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. So this is where I got remember, um, Daniel 8:14, I capitalized he because he said this, the man, okay? Immediately after he said it, then Daniel had seen in the visions, he saw a man. And I capitalized them here. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So you have Gabriel, one of the main angels, being ordered by his captain of the Lord's host of Joshua 5. So he came near before I stood, and when he came, the man, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O Son of Man, because at the time of the end shall be the vision. So he's saying that at the time of the end shall be this vision happening. So we're going to go into this a little bit. And then he proceeds to say, now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face towards the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. All right, now, why would Daniel faint if it was an angel? He fainted here because the man, he is a pre-incarnate Christ, the Son of God. Okay, so when reading verses 8:15 through 18, one should realize a few points. First, Daniel was not understanding these visions and their meaning, so don't feel bad if they don't make sense to you when you first read them. Didn't to me. How many years ago? The Holy Spirit is helpful in explaining, and sometimes it may take years for this to happen. Second, there's what looked like a man in verse 8:16, who Daniel heard give the angel Gabriel a command. So if this was a human being, a man, he's not going to be able to command an angel. So this is the Son of God. You cannot say it's anyone else but Jesus, the Messiah, in his pre-incarnate state. This is a Christophany. Okay. And he's ordering and giving, he gave that date that we just went over, the 1,300 days. The Holy Spirit is helpful. I already read that. This was a Christophany of the second person of the triune Godhead. Daniel was extremely afraid and fainted unto his face. Yes, this was Jesus the Messiah making his pre-incarnate appearance before Daniel. We can read within Daniel 10:5 through 9 of a similar encounter with a vivid description of Christ. He fainted onto his face there as well. The pronoun he within verses 8:17 through 18 could have been Gabriel, but when this person addressed Daniel as son of man, then I am convinced that this was still the man, Jesus Christ. Remember, the Lord God addressed Ezekiel as son of man 93 times. There's none, excuse me, there does not seem to be writings which angels are ever call a man as son of man. Angels don't call man son of man. God calls man son of man. Okay? Show me a verse in the Bible where an angel addresses a human being as son of man. Doesn't happen. It's God that causes the human being son of man. I am a son of man. Adam was son of God. See how that the delineation between us, we're all sons and daughters of man, sons and daughters of Adam, right? The man, Jesus, indicated that understand, O son of man, because at the time of the end shall be the vision. If he informed Daniel how important it was for him to understand this vision and for Gabriel to explain it clearer for Daniel to understand. So then Gabriel obeyed the Lord and he started explaining it. So here it goes. The explanation from Gabriel after Jesus commanded Gabriel to do it. And he said, behold, I will make you know what shall be in the last of days, the last end of the indignation, because at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram which you saw having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Greece, Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king, Alexander the Great. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Okay, so that's where we get our interpretation, isn't it? That it was Alexander the Great and the four generals, because history has already happened and it confirmed. This prophecy is confirmed by history already. This is where Gabriel obeyed the Lord, 8:16, and began to explain things more clearer to Daniel. As one reads the end of times prophecies given to us by Daniel from God, one will find words that are not commonly used in this world. In verse 8:19, the translators use the word of the indignation. The original Hebrew noun used here is zayam, which is defined as fury and anger. Who was angry? Who was God angry with? Some will say that he was angry with Israel for turning away from him and thus the captivities. Others will say that God is angry at mankind. I will say that it is both. I will cover this more in the next chapter, chapter 9. For now, just realize that God has an appointed time that he will consummate everything. The 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel 9. In verses 8:20 through 21, Daniel was given exactly what nations the ram and he goat represent. This was a year before King Cyrus of Persia ever rose against his suzerain Media. Daniel then had insight of who the second kingdom was on King Nebuchadnezzar's statue, as well as the second beast, the bear, with who the second king was. Oh, the second, okay, the second beast, the bear, within his own dream. A very special note should be made about verse 8:21. Notice that the great Grecian horn, Alexander the Great, is called the first king. Verse 8:22 then acknowledges that the four generals were to stand up and rise out of the Grecian Empire after the first horned king is broken. Upon Alexander's death on May of 323 BC, the four generals divided the Macedonian Grecian Empire. The last comment, but not in his power, would indicate that they did not rise up due to the first king, Alexander the Great, which can be concluded that they rose up after his death. Okay? 23 through 25 of Daniel 8. very important. And in the latter time of their kingdom. Whose kingdom? The Seleucids, right? That's what it means, of their kingdom. You could say there of the four kings, the four generals, but I'm referring to those. Well, let's not go there. The latter day of their kingdom. Whose kingdom? It was one kingdom, isn't it? The latter days, the Greek Empire transformed into the Roman Empire, the fourth beast, right? So the fourth beast, the fourth empire of iron and of Nebuchadnezzar, that's a single kingdom. It's still in existence today. When the transgressors are come to full and to the full, a king of fierce countenance, this is the little horn, and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, the little horn here. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cease craft to prosper in his hand. Cause craft to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, capital P, but he shall be broken without hand. Verse 23 and 25 through 25 have been used by those that support the theory that this king of fierce countenance is Antiochus IV Epiphanes. They want to twist it to their agenda. By skimming through these three verses quickly, while in their heart they believe it is Antiochus IV, they will miss the key points that exclude him from this prophecy. We've already determined one already, or a couple. He's never tossed a star or an angel to the ground. So there's another one. But here we go. Um, okay, their strongest verse that really pulls those to believe in Tychus' fourth theory is that in the latter time of their kingdom, right? So they're linking this to the Seleucids and Antiochus IV because he was a Seleucid. That's, I guess, where I was going with that. But it's not. It's a single kingdom in the last days. And that's what they fight this because wait a minute now, because this is coming out of the Greek dynasty here, not Roman. So this has to be Antiochus. That's because they don't have proper interpretation. They were not given the truth because the book of Daniel was closed up until the time of the end. And these people that have twisted things were not given the truth. It was not open to them. They twist this because they don't have the truth. If it meant to refer to the four generals' kingdoms, the word would have been a plural as kingdoms. When the transgressors are come to full, cannot possibly mean any other time other than the time of the Antichrist, first beast of Revelation 13:1. There is a time when the cup of God's wrath will be full, and God will pour it out onto the wicked of the world. Antiochus IV Epiphanes was not used by God to pour out his full wrath on this world. Though Antiochus IV Epiphanes was fierce in countenance, he was also known as the madman. He considered himself to be a god manifested, thus he gave himself his name Epiphanes. That is what these theorists cling to. In verse 8:23, Daniel was told that the king would understand dark sentences and stand up as the king. Dark sentences is translated from the Hebrew noun cheda, which is defined as dark, riddle, difficult question, parable, enigmatic saying or question, perplexing saying or question. Though Antiochus was a Hellenist and did attempt to force the Jews away from worship of a single God, he had failed in this endeavor. When Antiochus was engaged in warfare against the Jews, Judas Maccabeus made an alliance with Rome, hoping for aid against Antiochus. It seems that whatever Antiochus did gain or accomplish, he failed to do it by his own power. Verse 24 says the king became mighty, but not by his own power. This contradicts the history of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. The entire Antichrist will be given power for 42 months, Revelation 13:5, and his power will come from the dragon, Lucifer. He'll be inhabited by Lucifer, thus giving him Antichrist will be demonically possessed by Lucifer. The remainder of verse 824 indicates that the king shall destroy wonderfully and shall prosper. That contradicts the history of Antiochus as well. He was a powerful ruler, but not even close to what this prophecy is describing. He may have destroyed some mighty people and even some of the priests of the temple in Jerusalem, but once again, this passage is given the impression that this king will be mighty. Antiochus was not even close to being mighty. The Maccabees had proven that with their victorious rebellion against him. I will go over this more when I discuss Daniel chapter 11. Okay? So, we move on. Have I swayed you away from this ridiculous preterist theory of it being Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes? It's so heretical. All right. Verse 825 brings one to understanding that this king will cause craft to prosper through his prophecy. The word craft is translated from the Hebrew noun mirma, which is defined as deceit and treachery. The Antichrist fits this description. 2 Thessalonians 2:9. In Revelation 13, the treachery and deceit that the Antichrist will display convinces the people of the earth to take his mark of the beast willingly. The Antichrist will attempt to exalt himself above God, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, just as verse 825 indicates. He shall magnify himself in his heart. By peace he will destroy many. Indicates that the Antichrist will destroy many people through his deceptions and diplomacy. Finally, the convincer is when verse 825 declares that this king, Antichrist, will make a stand against the prince, capital P, of princes, or also known as the Prince of Peace. The Prince of Peace is the Lord Jesus Christ. When the stand is made by the Antichrist against Jesus Christ, Antichrist will be defeated, as the Lord will simply speak and the beast will be cast into the lake of fire. Revelation 19:20. In the final two verses of Daniel 8, Daniel is told to shut up the vision. This simply means that this vision was to be stopped, and he was clued in that it would not come to fulfillment for many days ahead in the future. So I'm going to read that. Verses 26 and 27. And the vision of the evening, the morning was told as true. Wherefore shut you up the vision, because it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterward, I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. So I'm sure he told people about it, but the book was sealed. The book is sealed. They couldn't understand it until the time of the end. Now, I understand it because we're in the time of the end, and God gave me the ability to interpret it, like several others, not everybody. Some people are gifted with the ability to do it. I've been educated with the ability to do my hermeneutics, and I dig, and I understand prophecy. In conclusion, for this chapter, I want to open the book of Daniel to those that still do not understand the prophecy of the he-goat and the ram. Daniel 8:23 did not imply anything about the fourth kingdom of iron from Daniel 2:40 through 43, as well as the fourth beast of Daniel 7:7. It confuses many when they try to understand that the Antichrist will rise out of the divided Greek Empire. They will attempt to twist the little horn into being a man who actually did rise out of the Seleucidites. The prophecies given here do not fit Antiochus' fourth Epiphanes. The first sentence in verse 823 indicates that the Antichrist will rise up out of the latter times of their kingdom. This implies that the four Greek kingdoms will become one kingdom. Because there is no mention of that Roman Empire here in Daniel 8, we must look at why this is the case. Don't just blow it off. It's not a separate prophecy per se. You just have to understand. We have history behind us now. We can put it together because history has already confirmed this prophecy all the way to the end. So we know that the Greek Empire manifested into the Roman Empire. As one looks back in hindsight, one will notice that the divided Greek Empire never was defeated and seemed to evolve into the Roman Empire. The Greek city-states had to be united by force, first through invasions of the Macedonians and then by the Romans. Because the Greek culture was more sophisticated, their learning and philosophy more advanced, Roman culture would be overcome as the Romans immersed itself in the cultural influences of the Hellenistic East. In the final outcome, as the Roman Empire declined in the West, Roman emperors transferred their capital from Italy to Asia Minor. With the Roman emperors focused on the East, a blend of Roman and Greek culture, which was centered in the city of Constantinople, did endure. The Greek culture and its Hellenistic religion remained and was adopted into the culture of the Roman Empire. It then evolved into a blended religion of Roman Catholicism. One can then understand that that Hellenism then evolved through the Alexander the Great, and the Greek Empire remained the dominant religion through the Roman monarchical empire. It then integrated with a false Christianity, which became the Hellenistic Roman Catholic theocracy of today, the mystery Babylon the Great. Upon the decline of the Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church took advantage and rose to power over the empire. The papacy utilized its power over the people with religious demands that induced a religious monarchy, which has remained in place even up to the present day. The evolution of Hellenism and a false cultic Christianity, Roman Catholicism, will soon bring to power the prince, the little horn of Daniel 7:8, Daniel 8:9, of Daniel 9:26 and 27. That's the explanation. That is why. That is why the little horn is out of the Greek Empire as well as the Roman Empire. Click like down below, subscribe to my channel for future videos, and take a look at the other ones that are posted. I do have a school in theology. You can actually check things out. Hopefully you enjoyed this and learned something. Please share it with others because so many people don't understand this. So many, and they need to because they're taking heresies from these preterists and twisting things. And some people say, I don't know. We'll know someday. Well, here it is. In the time of the end, the book of Daniel has been open to me, at least. Now it's open to you. Thank you for joining me. Yes, I'm a little arrogant because I'm a little ticked off because uh, some people get more publicity than I do, and therefore my correct interpretation gets ignored. That's what upsets me. So anyway, until the next time, God bless. Have a great rest of the day.